Everybody, welcome back with the Purplatypus is the name, and welcome to another Metaphor ReFantazio video. Today we're going to be doing a tier list of all of the archetypes in the game. So before we get into it, there could be spoilers, if you consider them spoilers here. There are archetypes you may not know about, and there might be a couple hidden archetypes, things like that. Maybe, I don't know. Could be. But we're going to be talking about all of them that are in the game today. So consider this your spoiler warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's jump into it. We're just going to be listening to the OST while I do this. So let's come up here. Here is the category I'm going to be using here. Broken OP, like actually breaks the game in half, and probably could be nerfed if this wasn't a single player game, but it is. So like, who cares? But maybe even best avoided. OP. This is better just to say, like, the most powerful stuff in the game that isn't, like, actually broken. Powerful are things that are just great. They're good to use. Great skills. So basically what this category means is this is a archetype that you are likely going to be interested in leveling up purely to get the skills to put them onto another archetype. Because you could bring over 4 slots in the late game. And typically you want to bring over passives, right? You want to choose a character that has like a couple skills that you really want. And then maybe you want to bring a couple skills over, but like there's a lot of times where like a thing will just have a bunch of, like, maybe they'll have 1 or 2 really good skills that you want, but the rest of it's kind of meh. And you just take that one skill over and you use it in something else where you're not really staying as that archetype. And pretty bad are just things that I think are honestly just like they're reasonable. You could beat the game with it. The game's not hard enough or nothing is bad. Like it's all gonna be reasonable, but it's just not very powerful in my opinion. And royals, I'm just putting them down here because we're gonna do them last, and I didn't need another category. So I will be trying to consider equipment. It's a little bit hard because different things have different power spikes at different points in the game. At one point, this thing would be strong, but maybe later on, you didn't get a good weapon for a while, so it's not that strong. And some things are, I don't want to just have it be in the end game. This is what's really powerful, but you will see earlier on things are going to tend to be weaker than late game things. There is a natural progression there, so they're not all created equal. Keep that in mind. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it. I have the game pulled up here so we can look at it whenever we want. So the thief here, the thief is, I'm going to try not to consider the hero passive, by the way, specific to the main character. It just isn't interesting to me for the sake of the tier list. Overall, this character is flipping trash, bro. Very, very bad. However, it has 2 good abilities here. It has steal. Steal is very good. You want steal no matter what you're doing. And because you do want to get to these later ones, you're going to level this up just because you want to anyway. But having magic dark attacks is not very good. Plunder life and plunder magic are both not very good. Plunder magic could be a cheesy way to extend your MP, but honestly, if you're buying the MP items you can get and you're being relatively conservative, I tend to not have MP problems by the mid game, and you tend to get this not in the mid game, but like the beginning of the mid game. So I think the thief is pretty bad. However, you do like steal, and the second thing is Phantom Tracer removing buff effects is actually pretty relevant in the late game, and in mid games, because sometimes things will just buff themselves to the moon, right? But overall, for me, this thief is going to be going into the pretty bad tier. And I know it has steal, but here's the thing. When we jump in, we're going to be going in order here, just like literally progression wise. Once you get to assassin, now we're talking. Assassin has a lot more going for it. It does have the increased evasion by 5%. This isn't insane, but it is reasonable. Electric dodge, again, isn't insane, but it's reasonable. However, assassinate. Heavy physical dark damage to one enemy may one-shot kill targets. It's not a high chance to one-shot kill targets, but I have had it kill bosses. Maybe not like story bosses, nothing like that, but like certain like really difficult like not trial bosses, but like, bounty hunts. Like I've had it kill all kinds of things. So it can happen, but it also just does great damage. Now, the issue is the assassin does not have very good stats by itself. It does have steel. It has lurking nightblade, medium physical dark damage, and lowering defense. This is great. This is great. This is great. This is whatever. And their synthesis skills are cool. High chance of one-shot killing target, but if you're spending 2 turn icons to do it and you're not doing that much more damage than assassinate and it doesn't work, I'm not as interested. And Phantom Tracer again is pretty good, but I think this is significantly better. We are going to be putting this into the great skills category. I'm typically not going to be running an assassin in my party, but I do think it is absolutely worth leveling up because some of those skills are sick. Now, if we come over to the ninja, so ninja has almost nothing more going for it. It does have the better version of the lurking nightblade. Instead of medium physical dark, it is, oh, I messed up here. It is heavy physical dark damage. And so this is just better. It does have quick change arts, which is very good. It has third eye. It's honestly just really powerful. I said they don't get that much. That's a lie. They also look cool. I tend to use them at this point. The hit and evasion goes up passively. Their third eye goes on, so they're way more likely to dodge. This is like a dodge king, and if you could dodge in this game, it's very powerful. The synthesis skills are actually a huge downgrade, I think. Like, it depends. I mean, it's not technically a downgrade because you have the same things, you just have 2 new ones, but it's so weird to have fire art and ice art. Like, this is just not what I want this character to be doing, like, literally at all. I don't think I've ever used these. Like, if I was a magic protagonist, I would still probably not use these, but maybe I would. Overall, I do think that this is into the very first powerful tier. So you can see here, right, pretty bad, great skills, powerful. That might be a thing here. However, let us jump into the Berserker here. So the Berserker has sense of kinship, increases attack by 10%, increases further if the same archetype is present. This is pretty good. It's all like heat up. It's not special. And that increases attack by 10%, and this increases physical skill attack by 10%. So I think this is, I assume this isn't just your normal auto attack. Sometimes the wording, I'm not 100% sure, but I assume this just is your damage in general. Warcry is pretty great. It's an AoE dispel. Charge is pretty good. Frenzy is decent. This is decent. This is decent. Like, all this stuff is like kind of decent. The extreme, the synthesis is like fine. The issue is like none of this stuff is like broken. This is all good though. It's all powerful. But we have like 40 of these to go through. We're not gonna spend too much time. This is great skills. I'm not gonna stay there. You can see the past, there's not that much reason to stay there because you don't need, like, again, here's the thing. You don't really need, just so we can go over this once, I don't need 3 different types of strike hits. This one hits all enemies 3 times. This one hits all enemies, but it hits a medium 1 time. This hits 1 enemy 1 time. You don't need like all these different ways of having strike hits. What you want to do is level this up, take the sense of kingship, and if you need a strike attack, you take one of these over, right? Like, overall, not very powerful, but there are some reasonable skills here. I love Warcry. I love sense of kinship, and then sometimes Frenzy actually is pretty good, but it is very expensive, like very expensive. Let's go over here to the Destroyer. The Destroyer is a way cooler class, and they are kind of jacked as hell. They have a heavy physical light damage that ignores resistances. This is super strong. It has Revenge Seeker, where the more HP you have lost, the more damage you deal. This is a huge amount. The increased HP 30%, honestly, this is kind of whatever. I'm at 999 HP already when here, right? So I don't really find this to be super relevant. But short range boost, Radiant Crusher, Revenge Seeker are all very good. And then you get physical elemental attacks. And the physical elemental attack also lowers defense. This one also removes buff effects. This one also is just like heavy damage. The synthesis also has some like pretty decent stuff in there. Nothing like I think is broken. But overall, this is just a much more, I would say this falls safely into like the powerful tier. It's definitely not OP, but it is definitely powerful. Now we're going to get into the Summoner. So, all right, so here we have the Summoner. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think the Summoner freaking sucks, bro. I think they are very bad. The thing is, yeah, they have they have a lot of coverage, right? They have dark attack, they have almighty attack, they have slash, they have fire, they have wind. And then you come over here, there's lightning, and then there's strike. You know, they have all this stuff, but the issue is none of these skills can be brought over to anything else. Like if I come over here to the merchant, I can't bring any of these summon skills over, and they don't have any fucking passives. So you're bringing over 4 passives. And here again, kind of here's the issue is a lot of times when you're going into a fight, you don't need, I don't need a really good fire attack. I don't need a reasonable fire attack and a reasonable wind attack and a reasonable almighty attack and a reasonable dark attack and a reasonable lightning attack. Maybe if you're going around the world map and just fighting things on a normal level, you could do that. But typically, if you're going into anything that actually you need to try on, you're going to want to find out what their weakness is and bring a specific thing for that. So you're not going to be like, I need all these different types of elements. You're like, I want one element. I want the best wind attack. And I want maybe the best ice attack if there's like multiple enemies with different things, right? And then I want a bunch of passives. I want a bunch of things like these are the attacks I'm going to be spending my turn icons on. Then I want either support abilities. I want buffs. I want, maybe I want healing, but this healing sucks. And then, or maybe I just want, you know, more passive. So this is the very first one I'm going to safely put in the pretty bad category. Not the first one, I suppose. I put Thief down there. It's going to be left to right. I think Summoner is definitely worse than the Thief. Thief is like a necessary evil. You don't need the Summoner ever. And then the Devil Summoner is going to be in the exact same category, right? Yes, they have better attacks, but heavy ice damage, fully restore HP to 1 ally, repel 1 attack for 1 ally. This one's fine, actually. But like a heavy ice, heavy burn, medium electric, medium ice, like this is just all like kind of extreme to all enemies is fine, but it takes 2 icons. It doesn't ignore resistances, so it may not always be good. It can't crit. Magic can't crit. So the closest thing to Summon Fury would be good, but it's magic strike damage, which is very weird, I'll admit, kind of interesting. And it lowers their attack and defense, but it still takes 2 turn icons and it can't crit. It's not good. Magic in this game overall is not good, and I'm also going to put the Devil Summoner in pretty bad. So let's go over to the generals here, okay? The general line here is pretty great overall. They actually, even in the early game, as soon as you get this, it's very good to unlock. The medium physical fire damage, this is one of the earliest ways to get elemental physical attacks, which means these can crit. Being able to inflict burn is very powerful, but this thing is stacked, bro. It has the same issue with the Devil Summoner, but it has a huge advantage where you can move these skills over, and these skills are good. Critical rate for an ally is okay, but there's a much better version of it later. All allies defense, again, when you get this is actually reasonable, because fights are going long, and especially on harder difficulties, they might just slap you. Fiery Strike is great. You can put this on any character that does physical damage, and they'll be happy to have it. Formation of Vigor is like literally the best buff in the game. Like you could get it, not literally, that's an exaggeration, but it is one of the best buffs. 2 ranks of attack for your entire party. It's not 2 ranks of attack to your front row. It moves all your allies to the front row and then gives them 2 ranks of attack. Heartbreak Stratagem negates 1 enemy's repel magic, repel physical. Super niche, but sometimes you're going to need it, and it's very nice when you have it. Medium fire damage to all enemies may inflict burn. This ability is reasonable in the early game. Synthesis here is kind of whatever. Increasing the attack, defense, and hit for all allies is good, but do you want to spend 2 turn icons doing it? Maybe. I do think that there's a point when you first get 4 party members and you're in the mid game. If you're having trouble on a harder boss, this actually is going to be pretty good for you. But later you get in the game. But it does have an extreme fire damage attack to all enemies and increases their hit and evasion. Very good. And then we're going to jump right into the other ones here, do them all at once. Increasing all allies attack is bad. This ability is actually just worse than Formation of Vigor. This is 2 stacks. This is only 1 stack. Yeah, it costs less MP. Yeah, it doesn't move you to the front row. Who cares, bro? It's turn icon economy, right? I don't want to spend twice as many turn icons for the same general effect. Ice Strike, though, is really good. Frostbite is really good when you're fighting harder content because it really decreases their damage. Shelter Formation is good. I don't really use it, but it's good. But Frigid Fortress Tactic, this ability is fucking sick, bro. It is so good. Heavy ice damage to 1 enemy and inflicts a weakness to ice. So even if, as long as they don't repel ice. Even if they're resistant to it, you could hit them with this, they resist it. But now they're weak to ice. And every turn you hit it with this, you're going to keep getting a turn icon and doing weakness damage. You can even follow it up with something else like the Ice Wolf Offensive. I don't really use that much. This ability sucks. The Heavy Almighty damage is fine. And so again, this is a really good ability. Ice Strike is a pretty good ability. And so this is kind of like the issue is that these are great, but you don't really want to be either of these characters. So let's go back before we look at the next one. These are great skills, and don't get me wrong, they're very good, but you're going to level these up, take their skills, and you're going to move it to something else. You're typically not going to stay as a commander or a general unless you're leveling it up. Once you get the skills that you want, you're just going to move out, you know? So let us talk the Warlord here. Formation of Vigor is great. You know, it's nice to have that. We already talked about it. Shelter Formation is good. It doesn't come up as much, but it is still good. Especially because if you're getting multiple turns, right, you could do Formation of Vigor and Shelter Formation in the same turn. So you have 2 ranks of all of those for two turn icons, and then you end up in the back row. It's really nice if it's your last action. You want to move to the back row. It just makes you way harder to kill. Heavy wind damage to all enemies, inflict daze. This is whatever. It's not great. Back boost and front boost are both good. They're just good at different things. When in the back row, increase magic skill attack for all back row allies by 10%, and front bow is all physical skill allies by 10%. Front row boost is better because physical is better than magic in this game, like nearly the entire game. Not always in all situations, but physical can crit, which means it just does a lot more damage in general. However, there is advantages because you're using magic. You could stay in the back row. It's definitely better early on in the game. In the mid game where you're actually doing longer fights where you're taking a lot of hits and you don't want to get one shot, right? Magic is better if you're playing more defensive. Physical is better if you're doing more offense. But heavy almighty damage to all foes, these are all good. This is actually enough good stuff where I would consider staying this character. And I believe if we come over to their equipment, can I just switch you over? No, you probably don't even have it unlocked, huh? Let's go to the Warlord here. Right, their ultimate weapon gives them almighty damage, which is good. Prevents physical status ailments is good. Like this is like late game stuff, but even like mid game stuff, right? You can use that really powerful ice attack. This is still late game stuff, if I'm being honest. If we go to more mid game stuff, like they have a lot of reasonable things here. I think that this is going to be, even though I think by my own logic it would be normally a great skills, I think it has just enough going on to be good. Healer it's pretty bad, but the issue is it's not useless. It's really good early to have some sort of healing, because this is weak HP recovery for all allies, and you get this like right away. This ability is good. Everything else, like, and it's okay to get some light damage very early game. I'm going to put this in great skills, and I actually don't even think it's great skills. This is going to be the weakest one here, but like early on, you just need the AoE healing, and you might want some light damage, and that's going to get you covered. All right. Not much to say about the healer. For the most part, they suck. I actually think this character is pretty much worse. They're just like, yeah, they get extra effects of recovery, but like recovery fucking heals like crazy, bro. I actually think the cleric is pretty bad. They do have like, okay, they revive all allies from KO with full HP. This sounds powerful, but it takes 2 turn icons. What does that mean? It means you need to, in order, if there's one ally dead, this does nothing, right? Because you could just use your normal healing, or you could use a revival item. So if 2 allies are dead, you get to revive both of them. That's its ideal situation, and it's really good right there. If there's 3 allies dead, you literally can't use this because you need to use 2 turn icons and have 2 allies. If there's 2 allies dead and any of your 2 remaining allies have any status condition, you still can't use this because it'll block it. So this ends up coming into play almost freaking never. It's only good in the situation where 2 allies are dead and there's 2 allies alive that don't have status conditions. It actually almost never comes up in a relevant situation. I thought it would be really powerful, and then I just never ended up using it, literally ever. Inflicted, like, I think they're bad. I'm actually going to put cleric as bad. Their increased healing is not powerful enough. I don't think it's I actually think the healer is better because you have the lower MP thing and you have a better passive. Like, Medi is going to do most of the healing you need, and you just get a passively heal over time. And you get Dekunda. All debuff effects from all allies. I mean, that's not irrelevant. And, like, yeah, I actually think the Cleric is really bad. The Savior, though, the Savior is not bad because they have the Exorcist Light. It is extreme light damage. It's okay. This allows one ally to recover stuff, cure status ailments for allies. I mean, this is like, none of it is that good. If you look over here, Godly Blessing, I've already talked about. This is okay, but there's other ways to do this that are probably better. It is good. Don't get me wrong. Divine Punishment is good, but I can't see myself specifically wanting to stay as this class. I'm probably going to get Exorcist Light and then bounce, right? That's probably it. Maybe I'll get these skills and then occasionally use one of them. But I honestly think that they are probably better than the healer, but great skills in general. All right, here's where I'm going to get in trouble. The Brawler. The Brawler, the Pugilist, and the Martial Artist, okay? I think the Brawler sucks. Actually, straight up is terrible no matter where in the game you are, pretty much. They use, I loved them at first, they use HP instead of mana. So you're like, okay, this is gonna save me mana. The issue is you still gotta heal this HP. So you could use your money to buy a bunch of items to heal the HP, which is fine, because then instead of spending, it's a way of keeping your mana up by spending money instead. Sure, but the issue is, like, this is coming from the perspective of hard mode, by the way. I didn't say that in the beginning, but I beat the game on hard and on Regicide, okay? It doesn't, like, this is too much damage to yourself. Like, you could, the amount of times you survive with a little bit of HP, even being in the back row, like, is too much. If you use one attack here and you don't heal it up the same turn, it's gonna get you killed, man. It's just gonna get you killed way too much. It's just not good enough. The Diligent Discipline is actually great, though. All right, this is really good, but Perfect Punch is bad. Skullcracker is bad. Strike Dodge, it's nice to have it. You never know when you're gonna need it. Battle Cry is bad. Health Font is bad. The synthesis skills are bad and are bad. So pretty much everything they have is bad. However, I am gonna give them great skills because Diligent Discipline is good enough where I think, because critting is so powerful, I am gonna give them that, okay? I'm gonna give them great skills, but I actually think they're worse than the healer. I think they are the worst one of the worst jobs in the game, but Diligent Discipline is so good that I'm always going to level it up. I want it every time. Everything else I don't want, though. Although sometimes, like, really early game, you just need some strike damage, like super early. As soon as you unlock this, you do need the strike damage. All right, so here we go. Dodge Master, enemies cannot critically hit the wielder. Okay, that's not a Dodge Master, that's just like a tanking master, but okay. Increase strike attack by 20%, that's reasonable. I'm not doing that many strike hits in this game. The Berserker does it, I think, but the Berserker has like a better version of it, not on this form, but on the Royal form. So yes, Strike Boost is good, but again, I actually don't like Crushing Fist. I don't like Power Thrust. I know it lowers their defense, but again, it comes into the issue of just, it takes too much HP, in my opinion. Spirit of Adversity increases critical hit rate when the wielder is mortally wounded. This is reasonable. If you combine that with the, what is it called? The Revenge Seeker, like, that is pretty reasonable, but I actually think it kind of comes out to irrelevant because you can already get such high crit chance, with things we'll get into later. High Voltage sucks. So I actually think that this is like straight up, Pugilist is like trash. I am never using the Pugilist for any reason. I think, maybe not worse than the Cleric, but I think they're pretty bad. Now, the Martial Artist. The Martial Artist actually has some pretty cool things going on. Unyielding Blood allows you to survive a hit one time. That's just great to have, you know. Prevents you from getting randomly one shot. Although I will say I do love the visual. He kind of looks like the Avatar, right? All the colors. Very cool character. Undisturbed Serenity sucks. Health Thrust I think is bad. Meditation I think is bad. Spiral Fist I think is bad. It does remove buffs, but like we have other ways to remove buffs that don't get you killed. Battle Master I think is pretty bad. And pretty much everything here is bad. However, Unyielding Blood, I think, is... I am going to put the Martial Artist in the high, pretty bad tier. I think you could argue it should be in the Great Skills tier, but I honestly think Great Skills is plural, and this is one skill that I think is pretty good. All right, let's talk about the Knight line. The Knight line has Knight's Proclamation. This ability is fringe, but very good. Noble Resolve, half damage when ambushed. This is good early in the game. It kind of becomes irrelevant in the late game because you probably won't die in one shot if you're keeping your characters in the back row. You could just retreat, heal up, go back in, not being ambushed. But, I mean, it's still nice to have it early in the game. And I think it only affects this character. I don't think it affects all characters. But, so I'm not in love with it. First Aid is bad. But 2 MP early on, it's a very efficient way of healing, so I like it. The defense is whatever. Shield Arts is pretty good. Knight Proclamation and Shield Arts is pretty good. Also, they have the early game jump thrust is like actually great. Deal medium physical pierce damage and it lowers their defense for 3 turns. Or the Hammer of Justice, which it does heavy pierce while also giving them a weakness to pierce. This is actually like the Knight is more of a synthesis machine with sometimes protecting. Like I think the Knight is pretty darn good actually. They don't feel like they do that much. They just kind of sit there not doing much. But if you're using your synthesis skills in certain fights, I actually think that they are going to be the lowest on the power tier. Because I think they are pretty powerful. And this is from the context of the early game, right? Once you're in the late game, you're not even considering using these abilities for the most part. But when you get them, and for like the first half of the game, I think the Knight actually will help you get through a lot of tough stuff, right? They got strike hits. They've got the piercing hits. And they could protect people, which is very good. You get to the Magic Knight. I'm not sure what's magic about them. They only have one magical attack, which is lightning, which is also their own weakness. So it's pretty weird. But Magic's Knight's Hammer is great. Extreme physical electric damage and a weakness to electric. I mean, this is a great ability. For only 18 MP, damn, this thing's great. It's like a better version of Hammer of Justice while still keeping Leap Thrust. These are great synthesis skills. Actually great. As far as their normal skills, this is all pretty bad. Heavy Rush it's surprisingly good, mostly because you have no other options. Pretty much this ability is okay. A barrier that repels 1 physical / strike ability. It's okay. I would use it sometimes. It's very expensive when you get it early on, but it is definitely a good ability if you kind of know the enemy you're fighting. But really, these skills aren't that impressive. They're not that much better than the other character, but Meta Line is great. Weak HP recovery to allies in the same row. They have to be in the same row, but if you're using Formation of Vigor, you're all moving up to the front, or you're using the other one, you're all moving to the back. This is like just a great heal to have on a character that's not normally a healer. So I think that I am going to put them on the... it feels weird to put them below the Knight, but I think they are mostly... No. I think their synthesis is going to put them above. I think their synthesis having that lightning one with extreme damage does put them a little bit higher. So let's talk Dark Knight first. Let's talk Paladin first. Paladin gets Holy Knight's Proclamation. Exact same skill, except it also guards. So it makes it just a little bit better, so you're less likely to die. Still a great skill. Increase the caster defense by 3 ranks. I would almost never use this. A barrier that nullifies for 1 ally. Raises a barrier that nullifies 1 / pierce strike attack for 1 ally. Raises a barrier that repels 1 / pierce or strike attack for 1 ally. So this costs 40, but this one only costs 10, right? So this is really good. Are these both nullify? The repels. So this doesn't repel, but I actually think this is better because it's so much cheaper. Repelling is better, but most of the time, if you're worried about your MP, this is going to be better. Counter is great because this is a 15% chance you just repel and do great things. Weak HP recovery for all allies can only be used from the main menu. It's whatever. Medium amount of HP and removes debuffs effects. That's only from yourself. Not very good. Revitalize, significant MP every turn is actually great. I think it's 10 MP. That's significant. But counter is really the best thing here. And then you get to keep the Magic Knight's Hammer. I mean, I think it's just better than the Magic Knight because this ability's better. This ability's better. You get the same powerful synthesis skills, even more powerful synthesis skills. You get a severe you know, as a extreme and then severe. So Crusader's Hammer is great. So overall, we don't got to think about it too much. Let's just jump right in. Paladin is just a little bit better than the Magic Knight, but not OP. I don't think it's like OP. It's just good. And then the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is, I would say, just better. Medium electrical attack is very good, lowers defense. Instant recovery, so your status ailments are falling off. Extra pierce damage is kind of like whatever. It's not literally whatever, but I don't really care about it too much because I'm probably using the Thunderstrike thrust most of the time. Mad Rush is fine. It is heavy pierce damage, so it is good. It's better than this for pure damage, but I like lowering defense. Magic counter is great. It's equally as good as the physical repel, but it just depends which one you need. I'd probably have them both equipped, honestly. And then as for over here, severe physical with one-time weakness to dark, this is very good. And for the reason we've talked about, right? Especially when it's 2-turn icons, because you get to basically consume only half of 2-turn icons if they have weakness to it the second time you use it. The first time it's a little like rough because you have to spend 2-turn icons, but after that, you just keep the weakness up, keep it going. You're going to do damage for the rest of the fight really well. Severe dark damage to all enemies and increase their attack, defense, evasion for 3 turns. This sounds good, but it takes 3-turn icons. I mean, I'm just not doing it. I'm just not going to be using that, honestly. Overall, I think they're like good. They're probably better than the Paladin, but it's pretty close. They're going to go right next to the Paladin, which I know is kind of lame, but I actually think they are relatively similar. We're going to get into the OP stuff soon. Don't worry. But for now, let's jump into the Mage. So, Mage. Bot, Blizz, you know, Fire, Lightning, Ice. 15% more MP, that's fine. Increase magical skill attack by 10% and it stacks. They have a lot of versatility here. I mean, this class is like, it's super fine. It's not powerful though. It's not like, whoa, this is strong. This is, you're in the super early game. You want to have someone as this, that way you can exploit more weaknesses because you don't have any options. But the second you're out of the early game and you get some more options, like you're out of this class. You're getting out of here. It's just not that good. But as a hero, recovering the MP, that's good, but I don't really want to consider that as part of it. I actually think they're pretty bad. I don't even think they have great skills. In the early game, you use them because you have no other option, and that's it. That's it, okay? I just don't think it's very good. I mean, I used it for a lot of my playthrough as a necessity because there's just no other option, but once you get to another option, you basically are done. The Wizard is kind of in the same boat. You're still doing medium damage. You do get Shield Blessing. Shield Blessing is pretty good. Arcane Unity is pretty good. This is one that, I mean, there's just a ton of synthesis skills, right? But you kind of need a second of a mage in order to make it work. You could also do it with a Seeker, but I don't need to go too deep into it. I think that this is a great skills, and I think this is probably above the Savior. There's some good skills in there for sure. The Elemental Master. So Magic Link is terrible. Half the MP cost of synthesis. You get this so late in the game, who gives a shit? Magic Boost, increase magic skill attack by 15%. This is fine, but magic is not a primary. The primary reason to use magic is not to deal heavy amounts of damage. It can't crit, so it does less damage than most things. You mostly care about exploiting weaknesses, which this does. 3 heavy attacks. Magic Link is pretty bad. Magic Boost is very whatever. But you do get some decent stuff here, but nothing like crazy. Severe Almighty attack to all enemies, but it takes 3. Repel magic skill, you don't need this. We already had that on another character. There's other ways to get this way easier. Severe fire damage, severe electric damage with no ability to do weakness. I mean, overall, honestly, it's just not very good. Like, they're like whatever. But I am going to put the Elemental Master in great skills because they are definitely worth leveling up. A little bit better than the Wizard. The Warlock. Warlock is way more fringe than the Elemental Master. They just have less options, right? Heavy dark magic, and that's basically it. Negates one enemy's repel magic skill. Like, again, this is actually reasonable, but I do kind of like having access to it, but I don't usually need it. I believe, is it the assassin that has it? Someone has something like that. I already forgot who I was talking about, but we talked about it earlier. Recover MP after defeating an enemy, I don't really care. Increase MP by 30%, I don't care. Hyper is reasonable, but there's items that do the same thing. But when you have to do it like this, it's not that good. It basically doubles the damage of your next hit. So if you're going to use a synthesis skill to get like extreme damage, then it like doubles that, and it's pretty good. Lost Wall is pretty good. Inflicts weakness to all elements and ignores resistances. It lets you, even if an enemy, so this ability has a pretty good effect, because let's say an enemy reflects light, but you want to use the Paladin's Crusader's Hammer, right? You want to do the severe light damage and give them weakness to light. But if they reflect light, you can't do that. However, you can use the Lost Wall to give them light weakness, because this goes through reflect, because it ignores weakness. Then you could use your other character to do that, so you can still get the thing going where you're always exploiting a weakness, even if they don't naturally have one. So this is a very good ability, but for the most part, just a little narrow. I don't even really want to level it up for any of these skills. I would probably only use them for Lost Wall, and I probably could do the Masked Dancer and just have an easier way of doing that, but I'm not super impressed. Child of Death is a cool sounding skill though, but I'm actually putting the Warlock in the pretty bad category, which I know it hurts me too. Masked Dancer, this is the one that I'm pretty conflicted on. I think that they're powerful because of all their masks, giving them access to so many different abilities. But there's just so many different skills that the Masked Dancers can have, and they have the ability to ignore resistances, heavy magic damage, and removes buffs. They have pretty reasonable synthesis skills that can inflict all enemies with a one-time weakness to ice, or you could just do one enemy with a one-time weakness like wind or electric to light, right? These are, I mean, this is all good, and they get a huge amount of skills with their equipment system. Let's take a look if I have a Masked Dancer right now. Like, right, like the amount of skills you get here. Can I take a look? Like, yeah, let's actually look at some, like a Soul Hacker one, right? You get like some of these crazy, you get so many different skills, more skills than anyone else. You could do the Devil Summoner, right? So you get a bunch of stuff. Overall, I honestly don't like either of these classes. They're one of my least favorites. But I do think that they are deserving of the powerful tier. They're both pretty similar, mostly just because they have access to such a wide range of skills. Even though you can't really move their skills over, their ability to bypass weaknesses is good. They could always have like a specific skill for the situation you need. I don't like them. I don't find them to be particularly strong in my playthrough, but I haven't used them that much. I don't have that much experience with them, so I have a hard time putting them below the below that category. We're gonna get to the OP, but again, powerful is like, you could beat the game with this shit no problem. All right, this is like, there is a tier above all this stuff, I promise. All right, let's talk about the Seeker. Seeker is, I would say, well, I mean, let me not eat my words first. I would say the Seeker is bad, but as the very first archetype, it's pretty good. It gets access to early wind. It gets access to a sweeping slash, increase one ally's attack, repel, negates an enemy physical skill. Like, this is like whatever, you might kind of want this. 0 passives. The synthesis are actually pretty good though, right? Like, you get a lot of stuff here. Adventurer's Curiosity is pretty good, but it gets way better later when you actually get it as a skill. Negates one enemy's repel physical skill. You literally have that. It's kind of weird that it's also there. Medium wind damage, like, they're just like super. Here's the thing, as the first archetype, it's a perfectly designed first archetype. I actually think it's better than the Pugilist, but I just think it's pretty bad. Like, you pretty much are never going to use anything out of this ever again after the initial part of the game, besides maybe Tetra Break, but none of this stuff you're going to ever use again. But it's great as a first time protagonist archetype, but once you get some more specialized things, it's going to get way better. Magic Seeker, I do like that it uses like a violin fucking sword, you know, like it's like a bow or something. You do get heavy magic, which is pretty good. Increase attack and defense for one ally by 2 ranks for 3 turns. This is still bad, but it's closer to being good. Wind dodge is not good when you already resist wind, but you can move it over. Medium HP for one ally is not very good. One ally's attack is not very good. Cyclo is not very good. Overall, Magic Seeker kind of blows. Extreme physical fire damage to one enemy. Yeah, a lot of these are like whatever. Extreme physical, it just, and even Heat Razor is not that good. Honestly, I think Magic Seeker is just, it's definitely better than most of these, I think, but I don't think it's like very good at all. Now let's talk about the Soul Hacker. The Soul Hacker, this thing is great. This thing is so powerful. Everything here is fan-fucking-tastic. The Soul Hacker is bonkers. Heavy wind damage to an enemy, decrease their attack. Heavy magic damage to all enemies and recovers MP. It's expensive, but this is great for just clearing out dungeons in the mid-game. This ability is not good. Adventurer's Curiosity. Increase the critical rate for all allies for 3 turns. This ability is sick, bro. This is so much better as an ability for 1-turn icon than it is as a synthesis for 2. Seeker's Flame. Heavy magic damage to all enemies, recovers MP for each hit. Again, you don't typically need all these abilities, but they're good. Heat Razor is reasonable as a skill as opposed to a synthesis, but not great. But Emerald Vortex, this is probably the single best magic attack in the game. Actually, the Soul Hacker is like so good. The Emerald Vortex is worth it. Getting to level 20 and getting this skill is going to destroy so much damage. And so when you come over here, extreme almighty damage to all enemies. This ability is pretty darn good, actually. I've had good success with it. Severe wind damage to one enemy. It's not that good, actually, because it takes 3 turn icons. They could have weakness to it. Otherwise, it's not worth it. Severe almighty damage to one enemy absorbs MP is better than recovers MP. It actually will absorb MP from them, so you'll get more back. I still don't know why Tetra Break is here. It's still bad here. And so normally this would go under a skill thing, like, oh, this is great skills. You just want to move the item over. However, not that many characters get a who could be the seeker. Not many characters get they get access to the swords, and the swords get some of the best items in the game, right? In the super late game, you can prevent anxiety from all your characters. You also get significantly increased wind attack, significantly increased MP recovery, increased damage against dragon type monsters, which happens to be the super boss, MP recovery, wind attack strength. There's so many good swords throughout the game that and equipment that you could use only on this class that I am actually going to put this class. The Soul Hacker is the very first OP class. The access to swords is huge because they know the protagonist is going to be using a lot of swords because you start off as the Seeker and your royal form uses swords as well. You just get a lot of really good swords, I promise. All right, Faker. Na. Faker. Chicken Baker. Where are you at? Here we go. Faker is a debuff class, right? Decrease an enemy's attack, decrease their hit and evasion, decrease their defense, remove all buffs on an enemy, and raises a barrier that repels 1 elemental attack for 1 ally. Overall, Faker's roguery, this is borderline broken OP combined with like these skills are both good. As far as their synthesis goes, free juggling is fine. Here's the issue. If you're early in the game, the Faker is fine, but really the Trickster is just so much better that I can't put this in like powerful. I don't think it's necessarily powerful because you kind of need your late game stuff, but I will put them in like great skills above the Elemental Master, I guess. At that point, it's Faker's roguery is good. You probably aren't going to ever move this over though, but it is good to have it. Removing buffs, honestly, it's nice to have access to these, but you can get items. The thing is, if you don't have another way to do this, these are pretty good. In specifically the earliest point you can get this, before you get Heisme, you can, like, if you have the wisdom or the eloquence, I don't remember the virtue, you can unlock this pretty early, and this will help you out in boss fights in the early game. Absolutely. Debilitate could be really good in boss fights in the early game. Juggling could be good in the early game as well for just clearing out dungeons. So it's good, but it's so much weaker than the Trickster. The Trickster that's where we get bonkers, bro. This ability, decrease the attack and defense of one enemy by 2 ranks. This is better than Debilitate. Debilitate does attack, defense, and hit evasion by 1 rank. This can be better if you are planning to kill an enemy over like 6 turns or something, because then you have an increased chance to dodge, and then this is going to help pay you off. But if you're just trying to blow shit up, 2 ranks of defense for 1 turn, turn icon is very, very good. This is also when Faker's roguery starts becoming really good. It does forget on an enemy, but what it really does is turn icons are added or removed at random, Meaning, if this is the last action you use in your turn, you have 1 turn icon left, you could just use this, and sometimes you're going to get 3 more turn icons. Sometimes it'll just eat your last turn icon and doing nothing. It's crazy expensive MP-wise, right? I see that. I know that. But it can be really good. Being able to transfer MP to an ally is pretty good as well. Not busted, but it is pretty good. Lucky Slash is terrible unless you have the right skill. But also Miracle Circus here, Miracle Croquet. Extreme physical almighty damage to all enemies without consuming MP. This is going to be a character that, let's say, can I switch? I'm switching Stroll because I don't like switching my protagonist around. He is what he is. Let's come over here to the, luckily I've maxed all these out as well on him. I know where it's at, bro. You can't even fucking lie to me, the Trickster. So the later in the game you get, the better the Trickster gets in a lot of ways. Now, I am tempted to put them in the great skills category, but I'm actually going to break my own rule. Not my own rule, but I'm going to break this because of how good this late game stuff is. Increasing the strength of synthesis skills that cause 0 MP. This is going to let you farm anything for 0 MP, like, easily. Almost every encounter in the game that's not a boss that is AoE, this is going to absolutely destroy it. Always getting critical hits is just very, very powerful. And then improve skills with random effects. Once you get the Joker's knives, this will just make it so you get extra turn icons. You could potentially get like 20 turn icons. Like, because it's not guaranteed, I'm not going to put it in the broken OP tier, but I do think Trickster is OP. Merchant. Oh boy, let's talk about it. So I think Merchant is good, borderline great, but mostly good. So gold attack is fine. It does weak physical almighty damage to 1 enemy with a high crit rate. The super early game, this attack is insane because you could use it from the back row and do full damage. I think you might need to be in the front row, but I believe it let you do it in the back row. But it's a physical attack. It does almighty damage, so nothing resists it, and it has a high crit rate. This is all good stuff. You also get bunch of items. Your protagonist gives you a bunch of money. All your items do more stuff. You have a passive way to dodge one of your main weaknesses. Debt collection is almost never used. And fortune slots is like fine. Like they're thing is they're good, but they're not broken. They're broken in the economy sense. If you're just going around farming things, you're going to become a millionaire very early in the game, and you're going to get all the items you need. So they are broken as a protagonist hero thing, but as a combat primarily thing, if you have everyone, like in the super early game, it's easily the most broken OP. Like, it's insane because you can have everyone be a merchant. You can have them all have Trader Summit, and all your items are doing double effect. So now you're just hitting AoE for like 400 to 600 damage based on the item you use to attack with. Gold attack is getting guaranteed crits, and the weak physical hasn't fallen off yet. In the mid game, though, I stand by it. I think it falls off really, really hard. So this is the hardest one for me to judge. Early game, it's OP. Late game, I would never consider using it. It's just not powerful enough. But I am going to put it in the powerful category to kind of balance it out. It is very powerful, but it has like a high point, and then it kind of just like it goes down a little bit. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. It goes down a little bit, and then it kind of falls off. But here's the thing. When it falls off, the Tycoon has a major drawback. The major drawback for Tycoon is that you get it at the end of the game in your last 30 days. You can't get it any earlier than this. Besides that, this is the single best archetype in the game, bar none. This thing is fucking broken, bro. It's broken. It's actually broken. Gold Rush is heavy physical almighty damage, way better than weak in terms of the damage formula. I don't know how it works, but I know that this does a lot more damage. A lot more damage. Items get doubled, and you can combine this with the other ones. So you can make items do like, what, 3 or 4 times more effect. So that's very powerful. I don't tend to use it that much. It's really all about Gold Rush. This is exactly what I'm talking about though, right? You have one skill that you really want to use, and you want to use this in every fight because this fight is it's almighty and it crits. So it's always going to give you turn icons pretty much. And it does great damage. And then you just got passives. You got passives. You're making yourself stronger. Although this is economy, these are economy. But critical trait doubles the chance of dealing a critical hit to an enemy. I'll say that again. Doubles the chance of getting a critical hit to the enemy. combined with a high critical rate ability. You're critting all the time, and it even has increased almighty attack by 20%. Then when you come over to synthesis, you do get the golden soldier, which is a extreme physical almighty damage to all enemies. And again, these don't take MP. This is infinitely usable because yes, it takes a lot of money, but that doesn't matter because the money is coming for free when your hero's doing this. You make so much money when you're playing as the merchant, the tycoon, it doesn't even matter. You're a millionaire, bro. This is, and when you get to the equipment, it gets worse. When I say worse, I mean way better. Greatly increase the cost and strength of money skills. So that heavy attack is now triple in strength. Also, when you crit, you deal double damage. I've talked about this before, but this is so strong. This is actually, no joke, this is broken OP tier tycoon, 10 out of 10. Probably, and it's in the top 3 archetypes in the game for sure. And the only things comparing to it might be something here in the royal category. All right, let's go to the warrior now. Let's go from the highs to the lows. I'm just kidding. The warrior is great. The warrior is actually really good. The warrior is one of the better archetype lines in the game, if I could find it. Not just early either, but because they get slash boost, because they get slicer, being able to hit multiple times, and you get heat up. So you're getting, if you like, the strategy for my regicide playthrough was I had 4 characters all play warrior, and I beat the whole game with 4 warriors. I did end up going to samurai, just because they have higher base stats, but the warrior honestly is great. I don't even feel embarrassed. I think warrior's powerful. I think that they're good into the mid game, and you could use them in the late game as well. Now, I will say that you're probably going to want to switch later in the game you get, but I'm not embarrassed to say the warrior is just straight up powerful. These are great passives combined with great skills. And they even have some pretty decent synthesis. Now, their weakness is they do slash. That's what they do. They do slash into slash into slash, and that's it. So if something's resistant to slash, you're gonna not want to use the warrior. But if they're not resistant to slash, this is like the best early game damage dealer for sure. And honestly, when the merchant falls off, the swordmaster and the other one farm up. Swordmaster is kind of just a skill monkey, I think. Here is they have 3 attacks: medium, heavy, medium, and light AoE damage, right? I almost never want to use them, but I always want Raging Edge in the mid game. This ability is so good for clearing out encounters, but it's expensive, so it's kind of a double-edged sword master. So I don't actually love the sword master. I think that they are worse than the warrior most of the time because you want to carry over. When I use the sword master, I carry over all of the skills from the warrior and just use those. Although he does have that one really good heavy attack skill that you get pretty early on, which is pretty good, but all of his other skills are pretty fucking mid, bro. Like, martial lore is not that good. Slash dodge is not exactly good. It's like whatever. It's really, this is all you're using him for. And even though it's good, it's expensive, I'm not going to put it in great skills. But I do use the Swordmaster for sure, and this can carry your run for a long time if you have enough MP. Samurai. I don't like the Samurai, if I'm being honest. I think visually they're very cool, but their attacks are kind of lackluster, bro. Mostly what you're using here is the Thunderblade. It's heavy damage to all enemies, which is the same as before, except it doesn't get the advantage of your increased slash damage. So it's actually kind of like a worse ability. The only reason I ever use this is something is resistant to slash, and I'm early enough in the game where I don't have that many, like maybe I don't have that many skills equipped or something. It is a really cool sword though. Giant Slice, I don't know why it does medium slash damage to one enemy. I don't know why it can't do heavy or extreme, and then suddenly this becomes a great class. Attack lore is fine. I think it's good. I'll use this. Concentrate, I pretty much would never use. Unwavering Blade, I'll pretty much never use. Regenerate, I'll pretty much never use. Sturdy Stance, though. Sturdy Stance is good. Half the damage you take. You can't dodge, but you're either choosing, are you going to try to go to dodge? Like, most of the time you're not going to dodge unless you're built around it. And so just taking half damage is very strong. So Thunderblade and Sturdy Stance are pretty good. Windblade is great. And then Crimson Moon Sword Art is actually badass. This ability is great, but you have to be the samurai for it. So even though I would use the samurai, I don't use it that much. And I am going to put the samurai in the great skills category. So I'm actually putting the warrior in the highest category. because I actually think that for most of the time, I just like the warrior more. I think they have more in their kit. Of course, you're probably going to use the samurai over the warrior once you get to that stage in the game. But again, I'm trying to kind of contextualize this around not just the end game content, right? Like the merchant isn't the best in the absolute final second of the game, but they're so good for so much of it. I think that they deserve the powerful tier. So that is why I said that. So when I get a comment saying, what are you, stupid? Why'd you put the warrior over the samurai, you idiot? I'm going to be like, bro, you didn't watch the video. I'm not going to say anything. All right, gunner, sniper, dragoon. We're almost there, guys. Up here, and then we got to go over all the royals, of course. This is a very easy one. I'm not even going to talk about them. This is a great skills. They're not powerful. I don't want to stay the gunner pretty much ever. But sometimes, especially when you get this early on, having a heavy damage back row pierce attack that can inflict hex. The hex I don't think I've ever seen go off, but it's heavy damage. It's good. The poison and the sleep, I wouldn't worry about it. Increasing allies hit and evasion. Pretty much you're just using this, but all these skills are reasonable, right? Sometimes you don't want to use 22 MP. You might just want to do a medium hit and try to poison. Like, it's reasonable. The synthesis stuff is good. Usable from the back row, but you have to be the gunner. But I still think that this ability is pretty good. Not in love with the gunner, but I do usually find myself leveling them up a little bit just to get a couple of these skills to have some more pierce options, because otherwise you don't get anything besides heavy rush on the knight. And if I already have a character in the knight, and maybe I want the warrior, right? Maybe I want my sword master to have some pierce attack. That's where the gunner comes in. Next up, we got the sniper. I like that the sniper uses a horse. I think that's cool. Harvest is pretty bad. Pierce dodge is whatever. Like, it's either good or it's terrible. There's accessories that do it. It depends, right? I mean, all these abilities are equally whatever. You know, when they're good, they're great. When you don't need them, they're just like terrible. So I'm not too concerned about it. All enemies 2 to 3 times is actually pretty good. Myriad shots is pretty bad. Salvo is pretty fantastic though, bro. This is pretty great. Heavy physical damage and decreases their defense. I love this ability. And then you do get the mania bullet still. In severe physical pierce damage, ignoring resistances is very good in this game. I am going to put them in great skills. They're going to go above, probably not above the faker, but they're going to go up here. It's pretty much one skill at level 20, but I do like them. The dragoon. This is the most excited I was to unlock a class. I was using a luck-based magic character as my protagonist. When attacks hit 1 to 3 times, the 1 to 3 is influenced by your luck. So I was so excited that there's a class that I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to be able to get this, and I'm going to be able to do 1 to 3 medium magic attacks later in the game. This is going to be my awesome build. Turns out these abilities all just kind of suck, and it's because you get them too late. By the time you get these, by the time you get those, you also have the Soul Hacker, and 10 times out of 10, you're just going to be using Emerald Vortex over these. They're almost the same cost. It's not quite, but it's just these abilities all suck, bro. They're just do less damage than the Vortex. You have to go around weaknesses if there's multiple enemies with different abilities, and sometimes even with 99 luck, you still hit 1 times out of 3. It influences it, but it doesn't guarantee it. The long range boost is fine, but short range boost is usually better because physical is usually better damage. Magic in general is pretty weak, and as far as magic attacks go, they're not even that good, unfortunately. I was so excited to get this. If you got this in the mid game, this would have been one of my favorite, and I would have given it a way higher rank. Unshaken Will, this is just like, I swear to God, this has never come up. Like, I can't remember a time it's come up. Extreme fire damage to one enemy and may inflict burn. Yeah, that's okay, but you can get this kind of stuff on other things, and there's just no passives here that I want, and I don't even want the skills. Like, this is decent, right? Overall, their synthesis skills are pretty decent. But I'm not going to equip this archetype just for their synthesis skills. Like, I'm being honest. Like, if we take a look, I don't know if I have their ultimate or not. Their ultimate weapons kind of change depending on how you get them is by leveling up characters. But increases pierce attack strength, like fire attack, ice attack, electric. Yeah, they got this, but it's like, honestly, I'm not even embarrassed. I'm just going to say it how it is. Dragoon is pretty bad. Dragoon's pretty bad. Sorry, Dragoon. You're not very good. I'll put you above the Thief, though. I'll put you by the Magic Seeker. All right, let's get into the Royals. Now, I don't have experience with all of these. You're going to see here, I haven't unlocked them all, right? I haven't maxed, I've played the game 100 hours, but that's still not enough to do everything. However, I'm going to speculate based off my 100+ hours of knowledge. Let's go here to the Royal Berserker first, okay? Wanton Destruction, extreme physical strike damage to one enemy, one-time weakness to strike. This is fucking great. Unless they repel strike, in which case it's terrible. If they don't repel, this is insane. This is so good. Stormbreaker Axe. Medium physical electric to one enemy. Also removes buff effects. Also, they can't go into the great skills category because you can't move their skills off of them. Okay, that's just one thing we're going to get out of the way. Raises max HP by 30%. I think this is pretty bad, but whatever. Peerless Warcry. Attack and defense for all enemies by 2 ranks for 3 turns. Even better than the Faker or the Trickster one, but it's way more expensive MP wise, and it hits multiple enemies. If you don't need to hit multiple enemies, it's worse, but it's still really good to have. Systematic Destruction. Extreme. How much is this? This is also extreme. Extreme physical strike damage to one enemy and ignores resistances. Increase strike attack by 30%. If you land a critical hit with a physical attack, no turn icon is lost. If you crit, no turn icon is lost. The Synthesis. Severe physical almighty damage to one enemy. Removes status, repel, strength, buff effects. Ignores resistances. Their unique weapon increased damage when you ignore resistances. This shit, well, it wasn't even the next one on the list, is OP, bro. The Berserker Royal is fucking busted. If you didn't get Bastilio so late, and I needed way more mag to actually level that shit up, I would have used them. Let's actually go over the Masked Dancer. The Masked Dancer is the one that I am the most, again, unconfident with because they have so many different skills it could have. But heavy fire damage to all enemies and you remove their buffs, that's good. Being able to give weakness to fire is good. Giving weakness to ice is good. Prevents turn icons when an enemy is defeated. Magic Surge, increased magic attack damage. Increase party's physical attack damage once per battle. This is good. But you can get this from an item. High chance of one hit killing all enemies. I'm sure that's good. Honestly, like, I'm reading this, and again, it's one I haven't used a lot, but to me, the Masked Dancer seems to be powerful, but it seems to go right with the Persona, like the Masked Dancer, Persona Master, and the Royal Masked Dancer seems to be on the same par, but the Masked Dancer seems to be a little bit better, obviously, but not like so much better that it's actually busted. All right, let's take a look at the Royal Summoner. So the Royal Summoner gets a bunch of severe damage skills. You get this pretty late in the game. High chance of inflicting frostbite. Decrease their attack. It's like if the wielder defeats an enemy with a summoning magic, no turn icon is lost. Okay, I can't say that this one is bad. This is a lot. I mean, they have no passives. They have no fucking passives. And these are all just like, it's the opposite of the Tycoon. They've got all these skills and you never need more than one of them. Like, yes, this is severe damage, but like, wouldn't you rather just have the one fucking Emerald Vortex, the extreme damage most of the time, and then just have a bunch of passives? The answer is probably yes. So this is not OP in my opinion. This is like totally fair, and I'm sure it's like good, but this is gonna be going to the low of the powerful. I'm not gonna put it with the other ones down there because I'm sure it just does good damage, but I'm not impressed with it. Thief. My controller got disconnected. Everyone panic. The Thief here, Royal Thief. Okay, so they get the good Nightblade. This is the first one we talked about, right? This ability's fine. Quick Change Arts. Ability is insane. Nullifies 1 slash pierce strike attack for the caster. There is a ring that lets you ignore all magic attacks, and then you could do this, and you're immune to all attacks. Very good. Third Eye. Halves attacking enemies hit rate. Plunder at extra high chance of stealing is good. It's like, whatever. It's still nice. I like it. Greatly increase your hit and evasion when a battle starts. Heavy physical damage to all enemies. May one hit kill target. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is good, but is it really that much better? The Noble Thief Soul depletes all of an enemy's turn icons if their attack is dodged. Whoa, buddy. There is an accessory that does this, but now you could take off that accessory and put on an accessory that helps you dodge or gives you more agility or gives you extra dodge specific to an enemy action type. This is going to break the game in half for you. If Heisme dodges, you just win. Heismay has a downside where he doesn't deal any damage, but he doesn't have to deal damage, okay? He takes all their turn icons. This is OP, bro. Not broken OP, but it is very OP for sure. Warrior. This is going to be the weirdest one. You guys are going to think I'm crazy. Vorpal Blade. Extreme physical slash damage to all enemies. Decrease their attack for 3 turns. That's pretty good. That's actually great, okay? I don't like Unwavering Blade. Concentrate, I don't like when you have to use it on yourself. Increase basic attack power by 50%. Like, how many times you could use basic attack at this stage of the game? It's not going to happen. Heavy physical strike damage to one enemy. High critical rate. This is fine. The issue is you have Tycoon at this point, probably. Guaranteed, actually. Well, not guaranteed, but you can get Tycoon at this point. This is worse than Tycoon. Increase slash attack by 30%. Okay, now we're talking. You can get the 30%. You can get the 20%. Weak physical slash damage to all enemies 8 times. This is also really, really good. Great chance to maybe get a crit. I don't know if it can, each hit is rolled separately. But if the wielder defeats an enemy with the physical attack, no turn icon is lost. This doesn't work on bosses because there's only one target on a boss. Unless you're fighting a multi-target boss for some reason, then this is okay. This is, I actually think it's great. It is powerful. This is not OP. I actually think that this is maybe the most powerful out of the powerful, but the Berserker compared to the Warrior, the Berserker is a tier above for sure. I actually think that all of these are still a tier above it. It's good. It could do a crazy amount of damage, but I actually think the Tycoon is, which you're going to have at the same point, is just a better option to have at this point. Does pretty much all the same stuff. The Slash Surge is good. You could do probably more total damage with this character if you're using Brave Blade, but then it's Slash, and a lot of enemies can resist Slash, and it looks like he's resistant to everything. He's not. That's just because of his equipment, okay? But yeah, I think it's very powerful. Very, very powerful. You could be very happy using it, but I don't think it's broken. Sorry, what's the next one here? The Royal Knight. Here we go. This is the exact opposite of Heismay. Heismay dodges and removes all their turn icons. The Knight reflects with Omni Counter, 15% chance of reflecting any damage, and then it just ends their turn. If you reflect something, it ends their turn. And the Holy Knight's Proclamation, which was good, adds 1 turn icon the turn after you use the Proclamation skill. So if you use this, it takes a turn icon, but the following turn, you're going to get an extra turn icon, which is actually better than getting the turn icon on the same turn, because it lets you get a more powerful turn next turn. It's like, if like you're going to take 1 of your energy and move it to the following turn, you get an even better next turn, because instead of starting with 5, you're going to start with 6, right? And why did I say 5 instead of 4? We'll get to it soon. This ability is great. Omni Counter is great. Noble Night Soul is great. Tear Surge is kind of whatever. These abilities are they're good. They're powerful, but this is all just like in the powerful tier. I think Omni Counter combined with its, if you get the ultimate weapon, it goes into OP tier. This is going to be one that I think is a little bit, different depending on where you are in the game. So I'm going to put it in the powerful tier, not in the OP tier. But if you're in the Royal Knight and you have the Lance of Judgment, increase the chance of counter skills activating. This will actually become OP because they'll AoE hit you, and either Heismay is going to dodge, but if he doesn't dodge, you'll probably reflect the damage, and then you'll end their turns. But also because you can get items that do the same thing, I actually think that this is not in the OP tier. I think this is in the powerful tier. We are at the final. We're here, an hour and 10 minutes in as of recording. I don't know how much is going to get cut out. The Prince. How do I get back? There we go. The Prince. Okay. Heroic Slash. Deals heavy physical slash damage to one enemy, boosted against human type enemies. Honestly, in the late game, a lot of the bosses are humans, including the final boss. So this is very good. Increase the caster's attack, defense, hit, and evasion by 3 ranks for 3 turns. This is the only version of this ability that's good enough to use. No other self buff has been good enough to use. This one is 3 ranks in all 3 things. Very good. Radiance, heavy light magic damage to all enemies. Depends. If you're a magic user, it's good. If you're not, it's not that good. Hero's Cry adds 4 turn icons, but you can only use it once per battle. Oh no. Oh no. Once per battle? Shut the fuck up. This is the most powerful ability in the game. As long as, because even if the Tycoon didn't exist, this would still be probably powerful enough to beat every fight in the game. Resist all. Royal Slash, extreme physical almighty damage. Damage boosted against human type monsters. You don't have this. You have to get a bunch of Royal Archetypes leveled up to max, and then you can get this. It does 999 damage to all enemies. It's not even that good. Honestly, it's good. Don't get me wrong. But for 4 turn icons, I could do way more damage than this. Royal Sword deals severe physical almighty damage. Oh, wait, no, Royal Sword, Royal Slash. So this does more damage. Windblade, extreme wind damage to all enemies. Extreme physical, does weakness to physical. You even get extreme magic fire. I probably wouldn't use most of these, but just this thing is just, with these skills alone, resist all, Hero's Cry, and Royal Slash, you're busted. You're fucking broken. But it gets worse. Again, this is a protagonist specific archetype. So once you get 70%, 70 or 80% archetypes completion, you get the Reverent Crown. It can only be used by the protagonist and can only be used by the prince. I don't know if there's a way to look at that here, but it can only be used by the prince. At the start of every turn, you get an additional turn icon. This gives you an additional turn icon. This gives you an insane, you get a pretty powerful sword, but honestly, you could use any of the swords at the late game. They're all good. This item is insanely broken. Insanely broken. Extra turn icon every turn. So you start at 5. Also gives you 4 additional turn icons. I mean, what are we talking about? Let's end it. All right, Prince, broken OP. I think it's more broken OP than the Tycoon. Hard to say though. But there we are. That is all of the archetypes. I want to know where you agree. I want to know where you disagree. I want to know what you feel in your heart. What is the plat wrong about? What is the plat right about? There we go. I mean, I'm tired. I've been talking too much for a person with a cough. I've had to pause so many times for coughs, but that's all for this one, guys. Thank you very much. Let me know your thoughts on this. Hopefully I put in at least a couple timestamps for something. I don't know. Anyway, much love for platypuses, for Purplatypus. I'll see you in the flip-flops. Bye!
Platypus on the rise, watch the views go.